Calling to order the Municipality of Monroeville's regular council meeting for September 13th, 2022. It is approximately 7:05 p.m. Could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Roll call, please.
Mayor Grieslock?
Here.
Mr. Hizzy?
Yep.
Mr. Poach?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Wolfram?
Here.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Biondo?
Here.
Mr. Little?
Here.
Mr. Ratcher?
Here.
Ms. Rock?
Here.
Mr. Story?
Here.
Mr. Sedlak?
Here.
Mr. Weldon?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. Councilman Stevenson sends his regrets. He is out of town this evening, and unfortunately, he cannot attend this meeting. I'm going to open the floor for public comment on proposed agenda items only. This comment period is only for items that are on the agenda. There will be another comment period at the end of the meeting for any municipal matter, but this moment is just for agenda items only. If there's any resident or taxpayer that would like to address council. Seeing none. Closing the public comment period and moving over to an executive session. Announcement that council conducted an executive session before tonight's council meeting on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, from 6:15 to approximately 7 p.m. for personnel and litigation reasons. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at the Tuesday, September 13th council meeting this evening. Council members, moving over to our minutes. For your consideration this evening are the Citizens Night meeting minutes of August 4th, 2022, the agenda-setting meeting of August 4th, 2022, and the regular council meeting of August 9th, 2022. Is there a motion to
approve?
Second.
Sir.
Motion a second to approve those minutes? Any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, yeah,
Sure.
the spelling was corrected on Nicole Henline's name. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Great. Anything else, council? Seeing none, there is a motion a second to approve these minutes. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Reports of tax collections. I'm seeking a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion a second to approve. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
The ayes have it. Council, list of bills and budget transfers. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And the payroll report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
The ayes have it. And all these items were reviewed at the last Tuesday, September 6th, agenda-setting meeting. Council, moving over to our vacancies on boards, commissions, and authorities. Mr. Hizzy, anything this evening?
None.
Mr. Poach?
I do have three to move forward on stuff, one on behalf of Mr. Stevenson, too, I think, partially, too. But the first for approval, somebody who was nominated, the Police Civil Service Commission, Jonathan Pulaski. So
That's a motion to appoint?
that's a motion to appoint him.
I make a motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And then for Human Needs and Resources, a motion to nominate Mr. Perry.
Okay, he is nominated. No need for a second.
And then a motion to nominate on the Library Board, Cindy Lucas.
She is nominated for next month. So the way this works is that an individual is nominated for a month, and then at the next council meeting next month, then they can be appointed.
No, we just talked about it, I think. I don't think we nominated her the last time. We just talked about it at Citizens Night.
Anything else, Mr. Poach?
That's plenty.
Very good. Mr. Wolfram?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Adams?
Nothing, Mayor.
Mr. Williams?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Biondo?
Nothing.
Very good. Council, we are moving over to our bids and proposals. We have one item under surplus equipment. Is that correct? Mr. Little?
One item, we have the sold assets on Gov Deals. We had three items there, a 2000 Ford SUV, a 2006 Chevy Silverado, and a 2009 Silverado. We ended up gross getting $7,676, which Gov Deals had $575.70 of their fee, and we received $7,100.30.
Balance the
Looking for
budget.
a motion from council.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Questions or comments, council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram.
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving over to our consent agenda, we have old business, 22-1-Z, Law Funeral Home. Mr. Little.
Okay, applicant is requesting to rezone the portion of tax parcel 857M1985 that is currently zoned R1 in a single-family residential to C2 Business Commercial. The total area of property is 4.41 acres. Property is located at 2555 Haymaker Road. Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions, and this was tabled, but we had a public hearing last Tuesday. So, council's pleasure.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, council, item is tabled, so if we want to take any kind of action on this item, it would have to be removed from the table, or no action taken, and it stays on the table. So, my floor is open.
I have some additional questions.
So in order to do that, we'd have to remove from the table.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to remove from the table.
I'll go
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Let's have a roll call for that, please.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
We're going that way.
Mr. Wolfram.
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So this item is now on the table for discussion, but now I'd have
Go
to,
backwards twice.
procedurally though, Mr. Rasher, what we need to do is have a motion to approve it or to deny it, either way.
Correct.
And that is just to then discuss it. That
Yes.
doesn't mean we're going to vote on it. It could also be tabled again, and whichever way it's motioned, it could be voted for or against either way. So I'd like to have, so we could discuss it further, I would like to have a motion.
I will make a motion to approve.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Now we'll open up for discussion. Mr. Poach, you had some questions.
I do. I assume everyone's still under oath from last time? Because I'd like to ask the Bosnia attorney to come up to answer those questions if we can.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. For the record, again, my name is Thomas Lonich. I'm the attorney for Mr. and Mrs. Law, or Mr. and Mrs. Law, whichever way we're looking at it here. And we are here and prepared to answer any questions that you may have, so, sir.
Yeah, thank you, too. And first of all, I appreciate your preparation last time to do this, too. It's kind of like the master's class. We wish everybody would appear, so prepared for us, because we have a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Before I ask anything else, too, this is not an adversarial, question, too. If you please take your time in answering it and think about it. If you want to step away and you guys confer before your answers, you can do that. By all means, just take your time. People have a tendency when they come here to want to answer very quickly, to do that, too. All right? So please take your time on it. A couple of things. Mr. Law, last time in your testimony, you talked about that this was the last segregated industry.
Correct.
Do you amend that too? And to be honest with you, it was kind of like a surprise to me, and that, in fact, that was true. It occurred to me, it was a moment of clarity, that every African-American funeral I've ever gone to has been to the same place who's a competitor of your Penn say, so they're not going to get free advertising, okay? But it's been to the same place, okay, all the time. So found that to be true. That having been said, and you've had other funeral homes, you know, too. You had the Wilkinsburg facility, and that's closed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that one's closed, and you have the facility in Penn Hills, and you have a lot of experience doing this. How do you decide, and this is going to go to business flow, is where I'm going with this too. How do you decide the metrics of this is a place that you want to have a facility?
Well, I had numerous families that have asked, I mean, personally asked me, why it come in, because we service a number of Monroeville citizens right now. But I've had a number of them ask me, why didn't we consider relocating to Monroeville? And I am aware of the migration flow. And I have come to find out there's more and more of our families have moved to Monroeville and the surrounding communities.
Okay, so that's that part of it too. So when you make that decision, and you're going to look at the number of funerals that you're going to actually conduct, and from your experience, okay, I'm not nailing you down to this is only going to be so many. That's not the question I'm asking. The question is, what's your expectation of the normal business flow that you would expect, you know, on a weekly basis? 1, 2, 4, 6, what, I mean, based upon your experiences. And if you want to talk about it first, go ahead.
No, I would just like to answer this one, if you don't mind. So I just want to piggyback on what Dwight said about the comments that we first were going to look at space closer to the city, East Liberty, if that's moving. And as we were talking about that, we had noticed, and a lot of people were asking us, literally coming and asking us to move to Monroeville. We have a number of families. So we're not closing the Penn Hills location.
Right.
Actually, servicing Monroeville will help us spread out what we have, not only to increase, but we're not going to be bringing so much more and not have another space. In saying that, is to spread what we do have out a little bit more, so we don't have a whole lot of services in one facility, that we can facilitate where we're at as well as here, and not everybody having to come to one space and putting the heavy on our space in Penn Hills.
It's good for your business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
definitely.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So, but my question goes back to, what do you think, based upon your experience now, the expectation is, and this goes to traffic flow
Right.
and usage and stuff as well, what do you expect the number of, in the facility?
It would be, volume-wise, wouldn't be comparable to what we do in Penn Hills, because we're in Penn Hills surrounded by East Hills and Wilkinsburg
Sure.
and Homewood, so we have significantly more growth. But if we could, I'd project 30 to 40 funerals a year, which at Penn Hills right now, we're doing close to 300.
About, to answer your question specifically, what you're anticipating is maybe one service a week.
Well, one a week, that's what
Okay. All right.
And that's typically how you come to that number, is with the overall, I think per 1,000, there's 10 deaths per 1,000. That's how it comes out to. But that's taking that we would get all, which we wouldn't get all.
But one per week is that expectation, that's the
Correct.
rate of business that we had talked about that. I said you previously owned the Wilkinsburg facility, and you chose to close that?
Correct,
Was it
correct.
falling
Well,
in?
we moved to Penn Hills from Wilkinsburg. We maintained both of them for a couple of years, but we found out that people felt a little safer in Penn Hills than they did in Wilkinsburg. We had literally had people from Wilkinsburg coming to Penn Hills, or preferring Penn Hills.
Really to the heart of it, and I asked you to a couple of exhibits, I handed you as well, one of the things that we were asked about was traffic and information, and I wanted to just let you know, we looked at that as well. We asked the last 5 years of the information. And I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but how long has that facility not been in operation?
What,
a church?
The church is, what, the last year?
Oh,
I can't answer that.
Okay.
But
I don't know if you knew or not.
But from the time we bought it, I think they had just closed, which was
And you
almost a year ago.
do own the property? It's not a
Correct.
contingency on, for you,
Correct.
okay, so
We
you own the property.
I believe that was Exhibit 2, we entered into evidence the
Okay.
deed showing
You did, that's right, you did. Okay, yeah, I needed to, boy, that's interesting with that as well. Okay, I guess one of the, you put a number of exhibits in front of us that talked about what you said for the use of the facility into the future. Is it your impression that in the future, okay, that somehow we can come to an accommodation that says nobody will ever do anything but a funeral home at that piece in a commercial property?
Let me-
You can talk about it if you like.
Yeah, I'll give you the legal answer, and I know the.
You guys, go right ahead.
Testimony. Again, my position would be that with the additional language in a deed of a restrictive covenant, that would restrict the use. The enforceability may come from a neighbor or someone outside of saying, you're only allowed to use this as a funeral home, but we believe that preserves that use only as a funeral home. In addition, and as I said, those exhibits, the proposed restrictive covenant language, the proposed developers agreement was to bolster the representations given by Mr. and Mrs. Law to say, this is what we intend to use. You know, we're putting up instead of shutting up. So we're willing to sign this documentation to indicate to you to be able to do this. And I believe that the testimony was clear, that both Mr. and Mrs. Law said the only intent is to use this as a funeral home. Maybe somewhere down the line, depending on economics, depending on whatever, subject to standards that will exist in Monroeville, perhaps a crematorium someday. But it is only intended to be used for that as a funeral home at that facility, and they've indicated that's all they intend to do with it.
Okay, you get to do that.
Mr. Poach, if I just want a question about that.
Yeah,
And
please,
say for-
and then I know everybody else has some other
No,
questions too.
Mr. Ratcher, in regards to that, as far as the restrictive covenant, I know there is some questions about maybe enforceability, but if both parties were agreeable to that, would that be done prior to a rezoning or during a site plan, or when would be the appropriate time to enter in such an agreement, or to change the deed?
Well, the deed would have to be changed as between the previous owners because the applicant couldn't create the covenant by simply redeeding it to themselves and inserting the covenant. At least I don't think so. I think the deed would have to be with the prior owners. And then the question becomes who has the ability to enforce that.
And here, because the reason I asked that particular question, and this is purely from the last 5 years of sitting here, it's happened a couple of times in a situation where we have, I'll do this in very general terms, a specific piece. We had approved a change from a residential to a commercial building for a daycare center. Okay, that's all specific, you do that. There was a police incident at it. I'm a paramedic, so I was listening to the radio and stuff that it was ongoing, and I'm like, I recognized the address, and I thought, oh no, what about the kids? You know, I was kind of in a panicky moment about that too. I'm listening. The event, it was uneventful, you know, the police had any more follow-up, but something had occurred. So I waited a little while until everything had calmed down. I called, and I contacted the police, and I went, what happened with the kids? And they said, what kids? This is 6 months after we had approved it to be a daycare center. There's no kids here. It's set up to be, and it was another type of service-related business to do that. We had no recourse on it. We had changed it, they had changed it, and changed the nature of what we're in. That's the concern that comes in front of us. That's the tripping, block that we have. I mean, I have some concerns. Across the street is my ward. To do that, you're in the 5th and across the street. If necessary, I took some pictures if you want to see them. As well, looking at them going, I disagree with your interpretation of a buffer, yeah, the buffer zone, to do that, from that, because when we think buffer, you go to Target and Giant Eagle, there's a buffer, okay? It's down there. That's a buffer zone between a commercial, a very busy commercial area and a residential area, which is like very effective, okay, to do that. And I know you talked about doing some things as well, but it's, I don't see it the same way as you, okay, on that one for the buffer, but that's just that piece of disagreement. My concern has been the idea of, I don't want to say blank check, but being able to allow somebody to do that. It currently is, what, we say 7 acres? Not all of it, some's commercial and the other's residential. If you chose to do, if you own it now, if you chose to develop houses on it, you go through the process, okay, to do that. We have a number of, we did a little research on this as well, a number of I'm going to say convenience gas station type facilities, okay, in town. One of which is almost the exact same footprint as yours, okay? And they're somewhere in the neighborhood, the owners of those properties are leased. So here's the temptation. They make $35,000 or $40,000 a month for the next 25 or 30 years. And they don't have to do anything but collect the check to do that. Who's to say you couldn't decide to say, well, we're doing one funeral a week, okay, to that, maybe that's not helping us with that too, and now we can turn to that type of facility. We wouldn't have any recourse. That's my concern about it, unless we hammer out that other piece of it. Now, I know there's some, I have a thought in my mind on a motion, but I'm going to hold off on that. Those are mostly the questions and comments that I had too, because I know my colleagues probably have some other questions they want to ask you or talk to you about. But yes, sir.
Let me answer that. I see a fundamental difference between our business and possibly the daycare that you were alluding to. We have been in business now in 29 will be 100 years, and we have 6 other funeral homes in different communities that we were in the funeral business.
Yes, sir.
And that's
Well,
what we do.
actually, you should be my straight man for this too, because I could plan a response to that too. And that's, I deliberately waited till I finished my comments on some things, because sometimes if you notice when someone makes a comment and then adds, but, if I did that, start with something positive beginning and then, but I'm concerned about the rezoning piece, it would discount your reputation. It's like saying to my friend, Mr. Hizzy. Mr. Hizzy's a great golfer, but he can't putt for anything too, and that's true. It detracts from what he's doing. So I went ahead and tried really hard to look for every review and piece of information about your business, to do that. We should have everybody that came in. They came out as 4.4 stars. People, everybody rents something now. Every piece of information we found, your Better Business Bureau information, is in place. I talked to people in Penn Hills. I don't have anything from them, but no, adverse complaints. Everything was extremely positive to do that. And I kind of wanted to wait to the end to let you know that it's terrific, okay? And that's enticing to us in Monroeville, and I wish everybody was as prepared, to do that as well, too. So we had that in the end, but.
Our business is built upon integrity.
Absolutely.
My dad told me 50 years ago, if you keep treating people good, sooner or later it'll catch up with you.
Well, I don't want to steal anybody else's, I'll steal somebody else's thunder, because a number of us, called around. I spoke to a local funeral director who apparently has referred to you in the past, and it's like, it was a very positive piece. I mean, extremely positive and well thought of. And, sometimes I have that opportunity to be involved with a death in a home for someone, and for a number of years, the only African-American funeral I had number to call was that one I didn't mention, before. It was in place. So, that's not the case now, and the case even in this area too, so won't make that mistake any longer. But I'll, before I make any other requests for a motion, I know other folks have some questions and stuff.
Yeah, Council, I'm going to leave the floor open if anyone has any comments regarding this matter, comments or questions.
How about both? I guess, so yesterday, last week, we heard some testimony, I believe it was from Mr. Glaze, about the migration of the African-American community to the eastern suburbs. Have you guys found that is something that is occurring?
Absolutely.
And would that be something that would give you the motivation to potentially move to Monroeville?
Certainly.
Our business?
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
absolutely.
To open up a business in Monroeville.
It's about supply and demand.
I mean, do you find the east suburbs to be an underserved community in your business?
Absolutely.
We did find only 2 cars.
That's why we chose to look here instead of chose to purchase towards Pittsburgh, because of what is needed here. Not that we would only, of course, serve African Americans, because we don't only serve African Americans at all. That's our majority. And speaking to Mr. Poach, and, you know, I agree with you that we can't promise what's going to happen, but we have no intention on coming out and not making business. I know our integrity is good. I don't have to continue to preach that. I have no doubt, but I do understand your concern. But we're going to do something with the property because we own it.
Sure.
So we're also not going to, you know, if you say we can't, I mean, we can still use it as it has been used in the past, and that's still going to have traffic. We're going to use the property. So there's still going to be traffic as far as if you had a church service there, you know.
It'd be
with
less
this-
if, based on your estimations, actually.
I'm sorry, well.
It would actually be less than what the estimate from that is. And you saw
Right.
from I just handed your attorney, we ran a report on reportable traffic accidents for that in the last, from 2016 on, to do that.
I'm sorry.
And interestingly enough, there's two, and they've all been within the last 18 months, which, that's why I asked the question about when did you close? You know, it just seems odd that that's.
And it appears the one happened at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, right, I mean,
So
you know, so it's really,
it's-
and that was a question that I think a lot of folks brought up about traffic, you know, here in place. We don't really know volume information, because we have no statistical data on
Right.
studies or anything in place too, but at least I wanted you to have that, that's public knowledge too, that we did look to see what that was in place, but I'm sorry.
Very good, yeah. Mr. Biondo.
Yeah, so,
Floor is yours.
Mr. Lonich brought up, I think I think I'm quoting him accurately. He said that, a funeral home is the least intrusive commercial use in the zoning district. If a funeral home were in a different, if you could, put a funeral home in a different zoning district other than commercial, in Monroeville, would you have done that?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you have asked for a
From the
different,
legal
for a different
perspective?
zoning?
Well, let me back up.
Sure.
From the legal perspective, and if I was looking at a zoning of a municipality, then yes, I would have considered taking a funeral home and placing it in addition perhaps to commercial, but also in a different zoning district. Because it has, I stand by that. I think that if you look, you know what's in your zoning ordinance as far as commercial. Having a funeral home is the least intrusive, but it also has a residential character parameter to it that should not be exclusively in a commercial. And that's where we do it.
It's more like a church or a school.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
And churches and schools are permitted
Yeah.
in the residential zoning.
And I will tell you from my legal perspective, when Mr. and Mrs. Law came to me and I sat down and I looked at the history of that church, and funerals are conducted and were conducted in that church. The difference is the service, the viewing and all of that, because I was attempting to be creative in saying that the funeral viewing and of allowing that may be an accessory use to a church, because you're still gonna have the services of a funeral that day, just in any other church. But it didn't flesh out that way, so.
Your question was, would we pursue other areas? And actually, we did. When the church became available, we were getting ready to enter into an agreement to the building, which is right next to McDonald's,
Handles
right between McDonald's and the,
Oh, yeah.
and that is commercially zoned.
Former real estate building.
Howard, yeah.
We came very close to
Howard,
it.
yeah.
This
Enter
property
in-
just, I'm sorry.
No, no.
I mean, this property just has a lot of amenities to it that is conducive for less traffic, conducive for families, conducive for the area. And as I said during my presentation, I think one of those things is you have to see if there's any, make sure there's no detriment to the health, safety, and welfare. And I believe that this is not a detriment. It enhances the activity, so.
And I think you heard us talking a little bit about the upcoming, we have a rezoning, we're in the process of a rezoning. If this were to, would you have any objection if down the road, this were to, we would permit funeral homes in a different zoning district, and the space where you are currently
Remains.
would change to a different zoning
Zoning.
district other than C2? Would you object to it being in a different zone, being a different, either R1 or some other type of special use zoning district?
I guess the lawyer in me wants to jump up and say, well, I can't commit to
Yeah,
that,
right.
but I don't see any reason why, if the funeral home is allowed in the area in which you've rezoned, why there'd be any objection on our part.
To my point, actually, I think that was the
Right.
argument, is we don't, and we have a couple other ones that is kind of questionable what it is they did and when they came in front of us and asked that,
Right.
that C2. That's the sticking point here, is, you know, we don't know who's going to be here in a few years from that, or remember that piece of it, or whatever's in place. So that's the problem, and we have been burned. You know, sitting here, and the one that I'm talking about happened when Mr. Wolfram and Mr. Williams and I were here still. This one was this past year, the one Bob, you remember the one I'm talking about from down here. I don't want to mention them too much, but that they changed that, you know, place. And it's just, that's the thing that has me the most nervous. I have to be honest with
I
you.
think probably within the first 10 minutes of when we stood before the planning commission, and I said, I recognize the problem here. It's, you're changing a rezoning, you're opening it up to any rezoning. And I think I used the word because, you know, in my experience and representing boards, when somebody comes in and says to you, we're gonna do this, they're gonna do this, and you rezone and it opens it up, and they do something completely different, you feel duped. You have to answer to your constituency, and when you say to those people, you made this representation and you didn't stand by it, and they basically look and shrug, then that just irritates you.
Yep.
And that's why we have given you everything forthright and said, whatever you need, you have the word of Mr. and Mrs. Law, you have other additional documents. We've tried to take that sense of uneasiness and fear that you may have out of the equation entirely. And, you know, it's a matter, realistically, there's a matter of trust. Do you trust their word or whatever comes down the pipe?
And you saw we entered into the evidence, I think, the last time, the comprehensive plan,
Yes.
too. So you've reviewed that in terms of how, at that moment, now, again, I look over to Paul and to Jamie and stuff, too, in the context of the comprehensive plan and the rezoning maps and stuff, too. Where do we see that developing in timeline, too? Because currently, I'll summarize, it's more extensive, but the Mosside side was essentially business, the Haymaker side was essentially residential, too. But we're looking for the new comprehensive map and plan in. I'll start with Paul first, and Jamie, you
Well,
can jump in.
we're not doing anything with the comprehensive plan. We're doing zoning ordinance, and the map in that area has not yet been set. That's still a question mark of how that's going to happen, just because of the North American Martyrs parcel and Forbes Hospital. There's a lot of big players in the game right there. So it's right on the boundary line between a couple of different zoning districts, and we haven't decided exactly how that's going to play out yet.
Fair answer. Jamie, anything else to add as they move forward?
Unfortunately, I haven't been involved in the zoning ordinance update for a few years, so Paul's definitely
Okay,
the expert on that.
that's fair enough.
Mr. Beyonder, do you have,
I don't have any more questions, but I will make a quick comment. And I would ask, just before, I would ask you guys, and I know I spoke with Mr. Ratcher, I know I spoke a little bit with you, Paul. I would ask you guys to look into considering putting a funeral home in another zoning district other than C2, if this were to ever arise or to potentially resolve this situation here. I would just, my final comment really on this would be, Monroeville is a hub. We are a hub for the eastern suburbs. I think we do pride ourselves. I'm proud to live in Monroeville because I think we are a very diverse community. The laws have come before us. I think we all believe everything that they're telling us. I know there are concerns about changing this into a C2 zoning district. As Paul just stated, we don't really know what we're doing with those properties, as well as the North American Martyrs property that's right there and the Forbes property. I'm in support of this. I think having another African-American business in Monroeville would be a great thing. This does serve an underserved community. And I welcome you, and I would ask my colleagues to join me and vote to approve the rezoning and for the lots.
Very good. Any other comments, council? I would just like to comment as well. I mean, I agree with Mr. Biondo. I mean, and as we mentioned earlier, most people don't like to think about death. Maybe funeral home directors do, but most people don't. But it really was, it was definitely interesting to me that, you know, this is still one of the last segregated businesses out there. And we certainly are a diverse community. And to me, as the mayor of the community, I mean, it's sad to me that we have residents, African-American residents, that live in this community, that raise families in this community, that have been here, and when they pass on, they have to leave town for their final goodbyes. And I don't think that's appropriate. And I think this is an opportunity for us to have a business like yours to come into our community. Yes, there's questions about C2 long-term. I know there's some questions about the restrictive covenant, but I think that's a good faith effort by you, and I think that's something we should consider. I believe too, this is a good reuse of a church facility that I would be concerned long-term if this was denied, what would happen to that building? I think it would go in disrepair, and I think that's not what we want in our community, so I think this is a really good reuse. I agree about we got to look at this more comprehensively as far as where funeral homes are allowed in our next zoning map. I think this is something that whether they are conditional use some in other districts, but I believe they are kind of in the same category as houses of worship, churches, and I believe there is a residential component to it. The hometown I grew up in, 3 of the 4 funeral homes, the families lived in the same building. They were like homes that were large homes that were converted into funeral homes. I think this is good for Monroeville on many levels, and I want to encourage my council members up here to approve this matter and welcome this family and this business into our community. And then long-term, I think we need to look at our next zoning map regarding these matters. So with that, there is a motion and a second to approve. Any further comments or questions, council? So the motion and the second is to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy,
Aye.
Mr. Poach,
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram,
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
No. And one comment with that, not that I'm against your business, I think we need it. It's just the rezoning to a commercial area in that district.
Yeah.
Just because of in the past, you've lost some businesses or shut down some businesses, and I don't know, or no one knows how long this is gonna be a funeral home. We don't want any other type of business going in there.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
We're going to continue the roll call, please. We're going to continue the roll call.
Aye.
thank you.
The ayes have it. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. For myself and Mr. and Mrs. Law, I want to thank everybody. I will throw this out, that if there's any questions or issues about that property and what's being conducted, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact Mr. and Mrs. Law, as well as if any of the neighbors have any questions. They are proud to be here and will do what they can to help the community. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We actually will have a public comment period at the end of our meeting. So hold your comments for the end, please.
I wanted to abide on the.
You will have your comment period at the end of the meeting. There was one at the start of the meeting. When we first opened up, no one came up. We closed that portion of it. There will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. So we're going to continue our meeting now.
I'm talking about this specific issue.
You will. You'll get a chance to talk about the end of the meeting. You had an opportunity at the beginning of the meeting. You did not come forth. We closed it, and now we are in our regular meeting.
I'm sorry.
We're not going to keep debating. I'm going to ask you to sit down, or you can leave the meeting hall.
Anybody wants.
You will have a moment to comment if you want to later, but we're not taking any further comments, please. Council, we're moving on to our next item of new business. 22-3-SUB. Mr. Little.
Yeah, Keene Estate subdivision. The applicant is requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide and consolidate tax parcels 857P186, which is Lot 6-A2, and 857P184, Lot 6B2, into Lot 1C with total acreage of .55 acres. Property is located at 931 Macbeth Drive in the R4 multifamily residential zoning district. Planning Commission recommends approval with conditions.
Council, is there a motion?
I make a motion, sir.
And that motion is to approve, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion second to approve. Questions or comments, council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Coach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, moving over to our motions, we have one this evening.
Yeah, this is a motion to authorize to advertise an ordinance prohibiting the parking of vehicles on front lawns of a residential zone property and providing penalties for violation of such regulations.
Council, is there a motion to?
I make a motion, sir.
Second.
Motion is second. This is, once again, just to authorize the advertisement of this. We're not approving this ordinance tonight. This is just to advertise it so we can discuss it and consider it for the October meeting. Roll call, please. Motion is second to approve.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, resolutions this evening to consider. We have two of them. Mr. Little.
Okay, the first one is a resolution under Act 205 of 1984, known as the Municipal Pension Plan Funding Standard Recovery Act, authorizing the 2022 minimum municipal obligation MMO for the police and non-uniform pension plans. As for council, as I mentioned on last Tuesday, this is for next year for budgetary purposes. Now, if you'll notice on the resolution, we have the allocation that we get from the state has not been put in there because we don't know that yet. Okay, correct, Josie?
Correct.
Okay, we don't know that. Last year, we got what, $1 million?
1,017,000.
$1,017,000. Now, if you look on, this is for council's sake, if you look on the MMO of the, which would be the first one is for the police. No, I take that back. My fault. The first one is for the non-uniform pension. Josie has filled in the amounts. Okay, what is missing from that, Josie? You said there was one missing from that.
No, there's nothing missing
Oh,
from
there's
that
nothing
one.
missing? It's
No,
all-
we're good
okay,
with
it's all in
that.
there? Okay, so you got it at the end of the day. Okay, good.
Right.
And the second one is for the police municipal pension. And as you can see, the non-uniform is approximately $1.4 million, and the police is approximately 1.9, almost $2 million. So that's about over $3.4 million that we put into pension plans, of which $1 million we get from the state. Okay, so that is, so the public knows that's the amount of money we put in next year, we'll be putting into pension plans.
1 million of the 3.4, 1 million of this was from the state. So it's 2.4
Correct.
million from us, one from,
Correct.
okay. Thank you.
It's 2.4 that we will put in from the general.
2.4
fund.
from us, 1 million from the state.
Correct.
Got it.
3.3 million.
We're rounding.
So, 3.1.
Questions or comments, council? Do we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next resolution, Mr. Little.
Okay, this is a resolution recognizing the Garden City Swim and Tennis Club as a civic and/or service association under the Local Option Small Games of Chance Act as amended. This is for raffles that the Garden City Swim Club wants to put on, 50/50s and such, which is required under the county.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Questions or comments?
Comment on this. This is just for their swim club and that, none of the other swim clubs with
That
each
is-
other one, they would have to.
Just theirs.
That is
We
correct.
could not
Just theirs.
give a cover,
Unless they wanted to have a fundraiser, for everybody at their place, but it is,
Well,
it licenses only.
I don't
Garden
think
City.
it's necessary for each one to come, now I know that they have to, it's Connie.
I think some of the other ones may already have the approval.
Do they?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
Do they have their own license? They don't go through the municipality? They have their own license?
No, it's Connie.
Game a chance in that?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
directly, it should directly to them.
Okay,
They just need our blessing on it, essentially.
okay, good.
Very good. Any other questions or
Keep
comments?
the county attorneys in business.
Yeah, give,
Okay, we have a motion, a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Wolfram.
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
reports.
Moving over to reports of municipal staff. Mr. Ratcher, do you have anything this evening?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Little?
Yeah, on the capital improvement program, we discussed the amortization sheet and the different options at the work session last Tuesday. And I suggested to council option 2, column 2, which would be a $20 million bond with a debt service ending in the year 2043 with an approximate debt service of about $1.5, $1.6 million, which in essence would continue the debt service that we have right now. Virtually, we have a debt service of $1.444 million, which we can afford. We restructured that about two or 3 years ago, which we were paying $3.2 million for years. And council instructed me to see get another option on what that 20-year level would be at 5 years. So council, you have in your packet option 4, column 2, which,
I
As a-
thought that was 15 years, Tim.
yeah, is that what I said?
No, 4, 5.
50. Well, it's, option
Yeah.
4, column 2, which is at 15 years, which, as you can see, is approximately $1.9 million, so it's an increase of maybe about $400,000 approximately. There would be a bigger debt service in the year 25 of $3 million, and there would be one in 24 of $2.5 million, but from there, then it would end in the year 38, and it would only be $982,000. So that would be option 4, column 2, in the amortization level. And that's at $20 million. Any questions?
Council?
And also you have on option 3, which is the pro rata wrap, which kind of smooths out the debt service. And I mentioned that's over 18 years, and you can see the debt service is about, it really is almost about the same, you look at it, as the 15 years. Option 4 on the 15 years. I mean, that is a little bit higher, obviously, because you're doing it in less time. Just like a mortgage on a house, the same thing.
So Mr. Little and then Ms. Rock as well, out of all these options, which ones would you feel are the best ones for council to consider? Or are there or maybe do the opposite, are there ones you both, either of you or both of you would not consider?
I actually haven't had time to look at it because I was away last week.
Okay?
But, you know, I can certainly
You don't have to do it right now, since you're
No, I'm
just
just
getting in
saying
front
I-
of you now.
I can certainly understand that option 4, really, you're looking at almost about 2 million a year, which is fairly doable based upon what we're paying now.
Okay.
But that could be our homework for next.
We definitely have time. Mr. Little, do you have any comment as far as?
No, I mean, I've made all the comment over this whole summer about the capital improvement program with respect to the expenses, and you guys gave your priority on what was important, which was everything, okay? Which we come to we had a difference of what we actually have in the bank, so to speak, and the deficit is about $15 million. Now, keep in mind, I mean, you float a bond for $20 million, and there's always things that comes up, contingencies come up. There's different things that we're looking at the buildings, mostly this building, the library, the senior citizen center with respect to security, those things. Security in our parks with cameras and things of that nature, which are gonna be needed. Vehicles, obviously paving roads, which are the obvious capital items that, we have been pretty fortunate, and we've also, if you keep your nose to the grindstone, good things happen, and I think we've done that, but I also think we've been fortunate too. We've come through the pandemic, and then over the last 6, 7 years, we've built up a pretty good fund balance, and we've still kept the railroad running, as I like to say. But there are things that are coming to fruition that we do have to do. And council knows what they are from reviewing over the capital improvement program.
And the trivia question to ask is, what's the fund balance at the moment? Just as you.
Fund balance at the moment, Josie, you look at that more than I do.
That's ever-changing.
Right. Just the ballpark is where we were at, because we've demonstrated before, prior to, on capital expenses, where we had to draw down on it from a significant high part, and COVID came in. So I think that's important to explain to people that we've, to Tim's
Well, we're
point,
maintaining our fund balance, and I believe it's about 26 million as of our audited financial statements for 12/31/21.
That was at the end of last year, though. We're below that now.
Yeah,
We're below that.
yeah, probably a little, but I wouldn't say too much because, again, we have to remember that fund balance sometimes gets confused with cash balance. And your fund balance, from when I'm talking about fund balance, is your cash assets minus your liabilities.
Okay.
So that's why I say it's like ever-changing, but,
Sure.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
We're on a trend that, we've been increasing our fund balance for the past 2-3 years at least.
And also to add to that, we did get the ARPA money in the other second tranche. We just got that in last Friday, $1.4 million. We got that deposit into our Pliget account, which we have it budgeted, and it's not like a windfall or anything. It's part of the budget. So,
Any other questions or comments, council? So we do have time on this, and yeah, it's an important program, and I know I've asked this before, but Mr. Little, what would be your ideal time to have this all buttoned up?
well, my ideal time would be for council to feel comfortable with moving ahead with all of the capital items, and I say all of the capital items, moving ahead here. As soon as you feel comfortable doing it, the Home Rule Charter says we should have a capital improvement program passed by the end of this month, but we haven't had that for the last 4 years, and there's nothing illegal about it. I mean, but I think, and I've said this before, I think we should have a capital improvement program tweaked every year before July, if not June, because your budget process goes a lot smoother because everything, we have 2/3, 75% of our budget's fixed cost. So when you get into budget, and I've said this ad nauseum, when you get into budget sessions with the department heads, you're basically talking about capital items. And if you have that all out of the way, it goes a lot smoother.
Okay,
So-
very good.
Okay?
Well, council, I would encourage you to go back over the whole packet, all of the items, and it's all been presented. We all have the information. If there's any changes or correction, additions that you collectively want to make, but yeah, Tim's saying we do have time. We haven't had it for a while, but it's definitely important, and but if we ultimately are going to do it, which I'm hoping that everyone's going to move forward on it, let's get it going.
Well, I guess the only thing hold us back is some final analysis and review, and nothing binding, but I'm suggesting we try to target for our next meeting. Yeah.
Well, okay, just from a administrative standpoint, I have the department heads putting narratives into the capital program, because once we do ultimately pass this, I'd like to have a nice spiral bond capital improvement program so the public can look at it, it's online, and we have an actual document that will be at the meeting. So with the department heads and myself are busy with the current next year's budget, so we can begin the process.
To November.
Yeah, we can begin the process in October and discuss it
That's-
more.
That's
Yeah, I
all.
mean, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
fair to
yeah.
have-
I
That's
just want
fair
to,
enough. I mean,
just.
we want the, the reason I asked Josie the questions is so that we clearly understand, if there's any additional analysis to do that too. So I'll amend what I was asking, and let's try to target,
We'll target November for an approval, but during October to deliberate more and
look for
really,
analysis.
really hammer down on it, and let's get this going.
Do we have to have public meetings, though, as well? Isn't?
We have to have a public hearing, you're correct, Dennis. We have to have one public hearing, you're correct.
And we would probably, and that could be at either an agenda-setting meeting
Yeah,
or.
that could be at an agenda-setting meeting.
So
correct.
maybe that's something we perhaps aim for, maybe the November
Yeah.
agenda-setting meeting. We have our public
I would,
hearing.
yeah, I would.
So we have 2 meetings in October to deliberate and kind of get it to where we want it to be. Public hearing, agenda-setting meeting of November, and then hopefully consideration and a vote for November, the November regular council meeting. And then that gives us, then you have December too, if you guys change your mind and you want to table it and push it back.
Well, in the
a little
meantime, Josie could do the analysis on the options and see
Right.
what's best
bit. Sure.
Yeah.
with him and.
Very good. Mr. Little, anything else this evening?
Yes, animal control policy. I have with staff, mostly obviously the Public Works Department, we have been reviewing the animal control policy because, as Mr. Hugus, our Director of Public Works and Engineering, has mentioned to me going back 2 years ago, about how our animal control officer gets called out at different times, and we're trying to be all things to all people in Monroeville and even beyond with respect to controlling domestic animals and wild animals, and we only have the resources to do so much. But with that said, I think we have the best animal control and kennel of any municipality probably in western Pennsylvania. And I'll argue that point, but as I said, we can't be all things to all people, but we did some tweaking. Mostly the animal control policy is going to be the same, but there's some highlights here that I think the public should know, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but it will be on our website in case anybody wants to know what our animal control policy is. Council has reviewed this. I talked to Council about this months ago, and we've added a little bit of tweaks. I gave it to Council. So there's about 7 different items here. As far as domestic animals, this means only dogs and cats, and also feral cats. And this includes in traps. The ACO, which is the Animal Control Officer, shall respond to any domestic animal, which is a dog or cat, on public or private property that is in distress and is in immediate danger. If on private property, the ACO will attempt to contact the property owner or resident of the property before attempting to remove the domestic animal from the property. However, the domestic animal's well-being is principal. And also, the ACO shall not attempt to continually capture stray domestic animals that are not in immediate danger during non-business hours. Barking or roaming domestic animals during non-business hours shall initially be referred to the police department. We can't be calling our ACO out on non-business hours and chasing dogs all over the place. I mean, the biggest thing that you can do as a resident with your domestic animals is to get them licensed through the county and keep them under control and treat them in a humane manner. The public has a responsibility to this also. Second item, any wild, live, or dead animals on private property. This includes traps. The animal control officer shall only respond to wild animals during operating hours unless there is an emergency to person or property, and an emergency is indicated as a strong indication that there is a threat to life and/or property. Okay, also, the municipality shall not lend traps. We have not been doing this for about 5 years, but it needs repeating. The municipality shall not lend traps for wild animals to residents or commercial establishments to set on private property. We were doing that up until about 2018 or 17. Am I right about that, Jamie? Right around there?
Sounds correct.
Sounds right, okay. Okay, the second item is the ACO, Animal Control Officer, shall not remove wild animals from private traps on private property. The Animal Control Officer will provide contact information of private firms that provide this service. That's probably the single biggest item that has changed. All right, we can't be dealing with traps on private property all the time. We will have 3 private firms on our website, or calling the Public Works Department will tell you on who to call on a private, for a private firm. But the ACO will respond to wild animals and traps during normal business hours at the Gateway School District. That's just a reciprocity among governmental entities or governmental subdivisions. Third item, any dead domestic animal, dog or cat, on a public roadway. These are domestic animals. We're not talking about rabbits. We're not talking about snakes that are domestic animals. We're talking about dogs and cats. The ACO shall respond on business hours or off business hours to remove domestic animals, a dog or cat, from the public roadway to prevent traffic-related incidents such as vehicle accidents, property damage to vehicles, traffic backup, or et cetera. Again, that's only for a dog or cat. Now, the fourth section is, what about any dead wild animal on public roadway? This is also another item we've been having problems with. The Animal Control Officer shall only respond during operating hours unless traffic is impeded or in danger of injury to a person. Off hours, the police officer shall remove the animal to the shoulder of the road so as not to impede traffic. That's the police officer's responsibility. The ACO will address the dead animal the next business day. However, if an adjacent resident complains that he or she wants the animal immediately removed, then the police officer or supervisor shall call the ACO for removal of the dead animal. We've had incidences where a dead deer or something is pulled to the side of the road, and it's on a weekend, the property owner wants it removed because they're having a graduation party or something like that. Unequivocally, the animal control officer will come out and remove it. But in most cases, the animal will be removed to the side of the road, and the animal control officer will get it the next business day. Item 5, any dead animals, deers or skunks on property of businesses. And I'm just paraphrasing a lot of this. I'm not going through all of it. It'll be on the website tomorrow. The animal control officer shall respond only during operating hours unless traffic is impeded or danger of injury to a person. The animal control officer will provide the contact information of private firms that provide the service of removing wild animals. Item number 6 is a dog or cat bite. Obviously, the animal control officer has to come out for that. Item number 7, any neglected dog or cat. The animal control officer shall investigate and obtain possession for the animal's safety, health, and well-being. Item number 8, any dead animals on a place of worship. The animal control officer shall respond on non-business hours only during normally scheduled services, which are usually Sunday, for the removal of a dead animal. And the last is any non-Monroeville requests, which we receive a few. And this is except Pitcairn because we contract with Pitcairn. Any request by the Monroeville Police Department or another municipality for the ACO to respond to another municipality besides Pitcairn will be determined by the Engineering and Public Works Director 24/7 or his designee. And that is the animal control animal control policy of Monroeville. Council has reviewed it. It'll be on the website tomorrow in much more detail than I just went over. I just hit the highlights. Any questions or anything about that from council or the public?
Nope, well done.
I have one last item that, Mr. Hizzy, unless you're going to go over this.
We'll go over that.
You're going to go over it.
Yeah,
All right, I won't do it then.
Give him
All right,
something to talk about.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Story, do you have anything regarding Public Works this evening?
Actually, tomorrow we will start our milling and paving program. Milling will start on Cottage, Wilther, Hydro, and Sunnyfield if they get to it tomorrow. But if you know that your road is on the list of roads to be resurfaced this year by milling and paving, you can check the website and there'll be some more information on there. But watch for signs, try not to park on the road, be careful going in and out. And hopefully it'll be done in a couple weeks. And I think it's Tim Littleism that temporary inconvenience for a long-term improvement.
Very good.
That's
Very-
PennDOT from decades ago.
Very good. Anything else, Mr. Story?
That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Rock?
I do not have anything.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up the floor to the public for comment on any municipal item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council? Seeing none, we're going to close that comment period and move over to our reports of our council members. Mr. Hizzy.
Oh, yeah, great, thank you. No, Mr. Little just emailed me a thing from the county. Patton Street will open by the end of the week between Johnson and Thomas Street. But the following week, it will close between Patton, on Patton Street will close between Jefferson and Howard. That's the flat section going into Woomering, if anybody doesn't realize. So you're still gonna have to detour up through Thomas Street, starting next week, back down over the hill. On that good note, we'll probably have more calls about that. Second thing I got, in my area down there, well, it was down in Woomering today, we have a injured buck running around. It has some type of disease on it. The Game Commission's been down there every day looking for it. They know about it. So if you do see it, please notify the Game Commission. I think we have it on our website, the Game Commission's phone number. If not, I'll get it to them to put it up there. Please stay away from it. I walked right up to it. I could have pet it.
You didn't grab it?
So why didn't you grab it?
You can grab it.
So forth, I was told I'd get in a lot of trouble if I stand there.
It's never stopped you.
Yeah, yeah. So, just be advised, it's being taken care of. We just can't catch it right now.
You could.
When the Game Commission has to do it, not our ACO. He was told by the Game, that's his responsibility. So, other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Mr. Poach.
Two quick things, just an update. We had myself, the mayor, Mr. Biondo, we met with the school district last night on an intergovernmental meeting on some security-related items. We expect to jointly move that information forward, probably very soon with that, and the specifics and the details on it. But we just wanted you to know we are continuing with those conversations. We had it here last night. It was terrific to see the folks here. And then finally, on a positive note, it's quiz night at the library Saturday, folks. So still times available on the website.
Trivia Pursuit.
Trivia Pursuit, yes. Trivia and quiz night. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Poach. Mr. Wolfram.
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor. I just want to wish everybody a good night, and thanks for everybody doing their jobs tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Nothing there.
Mr. Williams.
Monroeville Senior Citizen Center is having a hoagie fundraiser. The cost is $5, and it's made of Italian salami, capicola ham, lettuce, tomato, onion, and they're fresh. Our senior citizen volunteers do a great job. They're $5, and it's a fundraiser for the senior citizens. And you can order them anytime, and you pick them up on September the 26th. You can have this if you want
I'm
it.
planning my lunch.
But the food's always good there. I was at a luncheon today, and the volunteers do a great job. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Biondo.
Pickup for hoagies is the 30th.
Oh, the 30th?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, you're going to get fired.
He was only for the.
Oh, okay. The 26th is the,
Deadline to order.
to order it, that's right.
Jared, can you put up the Parks and Rec? So the Parks and Rec catalog is out for the fall. The only thing I'd want to point out, so there's well, we don't have the QR code up on there. On the website, there will be the, nope. On the website, I think the program is up, and it will have a QR code, or if you can find the QR code, you can get everything online. One thing I wanted to point out was that Monroeville Parks and Recreation is teaming with the school district, and they're going to have after-school activities at Cleveland Stewart Elementary and University Park in the fall, and they're hoping to expand that program if they can. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. And yes, both mentioned the website. Mr. Little mentioned it earlier about the ACO update. So our new website is up and running. I think it looks great. There's always kinks we got to work out or ways to improve it, but I think it's very user-friendly, and I think it's a good move for the community and a good source of information. Council, in front of you this evening, you got a letter from the Allegheny Land Trust that they have submitted a notice of an intent to submit a grant application to DCNR for acquisition of a variety of parcels totaling 100 acres. And these are all around our community park, along Tillbrook and bordering Pitcairn Road. And mostly these are hilly slopes, undeveloped. They're undeveloped right now, and they really probably cannot be developed just by the topography. I think it's a good move for the Allegheny Land Trust to move forward on this. Not that they require it, but they kindly asked for a letter of support from Monroeville, and I would like to draft one and send it to them if council agrees with me.
Agree.
Everybody okay, everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And then, yeah, I just wanted to welcome the laws to our community and thank council for moving forward on that. They really gave a good presentation, and I think they're going to be a good service to the community, and looking forward to welcoming them.
We don't get burned.
And with that, I want to seek a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Good.